Hallo, einen schönen, wunderschönen guten Tag, guten Abend, was auch immer. Wir sind in New Orleans und haben heute einen tollen Interviewgast. So I switch now into English, not talking German anymore, and I want to introduce to you Mr. Joe Krown from New Orleans.
Hello.
Joe, thanks a lot for having the time to meet here.
Oh yeah.
And do this little video interview for Bayoogie stream. You are one of the New Orleans style piano players that is not from New Orleans, but you live in New Orleans, is that right?
Correct. I've been in New Orleans for 30 years now.
Okay, so you are New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean that is a long period of time, but for New Orleanians, since I wasn't born and raised here, there's always that little distinction.
Yeah.
But my heart is here, you know.
When did you get in touch with New Orleans piano style?
Well, for me, it kind of started in my late teens and early 20s. And I grew up in New York, and after I left high school, I ended up in Boston. And the only exposure I really got to of the New Orleans piano stuff was either Fats Domino or Dr. John.
Yeah.
And when I especially heard Dr. John, it was like, it just kind of like rang into me. I mean, Fats was great and everything, but the piano stuff that we got up there was all the smooth, popular hits like Blueberry Hill and stuff.
Yeah.
And he did stuff before that, as we know, that he was a vicious boogie-woogie piano player. But when you're not in that area that he's coming out of, you're only getting the hits.
Yeah.
And you know, Mac, I mean, Dr. John had he had hits that were very piano, very much in the New Orleans piano. And I remember I was somewhere in my early mid-20s, and I was talking to someone, and they were like, you know, I was just raving about Dr. John, and they said, hey, if you like Dr. John, you got to listen to this guy, Professor Longhair. And I went out and got some Professor Longhair records, and it just blew my socks off. And you know, from that moment on, it was all, you know, trying to play New Orleans piano. And in fact, when I was in Boston, and I was coming up with a lot of the piano players and blues musicians in Boston, because there's a very big group of blues musicians and blues music enthusiasts in Boston and New England in general. Providence, people like Duke Robillard and Roomful of Blues, and they all came out of that area. And I was kind of like getting the reputation of having, like, you know, a really strong New Orleans. I was really strong in the New Orleans thing.
Okay.
So, you know, I just landed up getting a job playing in Clarence Gatemouth Brown's band, who lived down in this area, and gave me a chance to relocate down here and do my thing down here, and I just no looking back on it, you know, 30 years later.
Wow, cool. We have a lot of users at Bayoogie Stream that play piano themselves. Mm-hmm. So when you work on a song from Professor Longhair, for example, how do you do it?
Well, for me, it's kind of a breakdown of what he's doing between his right hand and left hand, because you know, well, first of all the New Orleans piano stuff, and a lot of people down here don't really understand that. They figure they're going to learn some Professor Longhair songs, and that's all it really is. But you really have to understand that this all came from Boogie Woogie. And you know, Longhair died about 10 years before I moved down here. And James Booker died before I moved down here. But I did know Dr. John, Mac Revenack, and I did know Alan Toussaint. And Alan and I were very good friends, actually. We did some touring together, and we remained friends through the end of his life. And whenever I got around these older guys like him or Eddie Bow or some of the old original New Orleans piano players, my question was always trying to like get their secrets from them. And it always came back to the same thing. All I want to do is play Boogie Woogie and play like Professor Longhair. So you always have to remember that there's the Boogie Woogie is the left hand rhythm. and the right hand plays the melody. And it's the same thing when you're playing New Orleans piano. You really have to break it down to what's happening in the left hand and get that rhythm and then put what's going on top of it. And they're really very much the same thing, except it's just boogie woogie is what we call 8 to the bar, which is a straight 8th note feel. And the New Orleans piano has a little skip to it. It's a dotted quarter note, and a quarter note. It's bum, 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 bum. And that's the basis of everything in the New Orleans feel. And some people call it the Afro-Cuban feel. We call it the mambo feel, but that's really where it comes. All the rhythms come out of that feel.
Okay. Do you try to play licks that James Booker or Dr. John?
Oh yeah.
So
we all try to steal their stuff.
So if you work on a lick and you get stuck, what do you do?
There's a couple of things that I do with that, and one of the main things that I do is I have some software that actually slows things down.
Okay.
So I can actually hear note for note what's going on. For example, after Alan Toussaint died in 2016, I think it was. Yes, 2016 he passed away. Very abruptly. He was not very old. He was in his middle 70s, which is still old, but he was very healthy, and he just, out of the blue, had a stroke and passed. And the family, Alan's 2 children, did some tribute shows where they got Alan's full band with all the horns and backup singers, and they went around to different artists that had recorded hits with Alan and used Alan's songs. People like Aaron Neville, Bonnie Raitt, Jimmy Buffett, Rita Coolidge. I mean, just everybody that had, through the years, had worked with Alan, had recorded songs, Alan songs, and was a fan of Alan's. And they asked me to be the piano player. So now I'm the guy that's got to learn everything that Alan Toussaint played on all these songs. And every tribute show had different artists with different songs.
Okay.
So it was a very challenging thing for me because they really wanted me to play the gig the way Alan would. And to give you an example, we were playing a ballad, and I started to throw a little bit of a gospel feel into it, and they were like, in rehearsal, it was like, okay, stop. Alan would never play gospel feels. Think Professor Longhair, because that's what he did. And that's how it was. And I literally worked on every song, wrote out everything that he played, and tried to play it exactly the same way. So I had to spend time really learning every kind of possible thing that I could get to put in all the songs, all the fills that he did, his whole feel, the approach, everything. And a lot of that I could hear, and the things that stumped me, I had some slowdown programs that were able to actually slow it down so I can note for note it and get it from there.
Oh, okay. I got one more last question.
Sure.
How would you describe groove?
Groove is it's what you play and what you don't play. Okay. Sometimes it's not how much you play in there, but how much you don't play, and where you put those little holes where you don't play. And what we call here in New Orleans is creating a pocket. Mm-hmm. So and it's usually some sort of repetitive rhythm around how that pocket sits. Where those holes appear, it doesn't have to be identical every measure or every 2 or 4 measures, however big the pocket is, however many measures long the pocket might be. But it's basically the pocket occurs in the same kind of similar location every time, so that you are generating this groove, And sometimes it's for example, if you're doing something on the beat where it's it doesn't always have to be that exactly. It can be. versus doing something that's off the beat of 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, those are the pockets and the grooves and the feel. So it's not always so much what you play. It's important to have those holes where you're not playing. And the worst thing you can really do is overplay, where they're not getting the whole pocket, and you're just so busy doing things and throwing things in there that those holes and the spaces don't really occur in the same general vicinity, and you know it doesn't generate that groove. You know, so that's how I define groove. So when I'm playing a groove behind somebody, I just try to give them a feel in there that'll just be the playing and the spaces will occur in the same similar areas so that they can get that feel.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's kind of a hard thing to describe, but that's the best way that's the best way I would do it. You know, like when you're playing a thing. Versus doing something. You know, I mean, it's one of those things where you try to create space and music so that they all fit together, and it keeps reoccurring in that sort of way.
Joe, thank you very, very much for the
Thanks
nice
for having
interview.
me. Want to say hi to everybody in Germany. Come to New Orleans. Hopefully I'll be back there sometime in the near future. We were going to come back. I play with a younger guy. His name is Kenny Wayne Shepherd, and we were supposed to be back there sometime this fall, but the COVID thing kind of made everything go on delay. So, but we'll be back, and you know, hopefully we'll get to see you all. And I got a new record coming out in the beginning of the year. So, and it's a very heavy piano record.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you
very much. Thank you very much.